here right now where the NFL Combine hadn't happened yet. That's happening here in Indianapolis next week. And fans are needing to bridge the gap between now and having more information about the draft. Free agency obviously isn't here yet. That's going to be in March. So the rumor mill just loves to explode at this time. I mean, even Joey Bosa's mom got in on it yesterday, Cheryl Bosa, posting a picture of her son Joey in a 49ers uniform. Anyway, the latest is Maxx Crosby, the former Oakland Raider, now the Las Vegas Raider, waxing absolutely poetic about the Bay. I'm at the edge of a pier in French Polynesia, in case you think it's random, because it is. But I was dared yesterday to swim at the end of one of these videos, and I think that the swim is indeed going to happen. I mean, we're really, really close to being able to make it happen. So my legs are basically dangling in the water now. I am tall, not quiet, but there's a ladder right here. So we have the setup. We have the ability to tell you what Maxx Crosby said. He waxed poetic about the Bay Area. Now, let me start with this. Pete Carroll, the new head coach of the Raiders, has absolutely no incentive, in my opinion, to want to trade Maxx Crosby. On top of that, we have Mark Davis owning the Raiders. Now, I know that Tom Brady has a lot more influence now than he used to, but Mark Davis, I think, has absolutely no reason to trade with the 49ers. But Maxx Crosby did wax poetic about the Bay. And if just for that, I think it's worth showing. So this was the tweet. I've got the laptop here. I'm going to read this tweet to you guys. You could take a look at it. I'll put it back on the screen here in a little bit. But Maxx Crosby was in the Bay Area for the NBA All-Star game. He said, "I spent 48 hours in the Bay this weekend, easily one of the best experiences I've had so far as a professional. The amount of love y'all showed for this fourth rounder from Eastern Michigan was humbling. I was just a kid chasing my dreams and trying to figure out when I first touched down in Cali as a rookie. Going from Oaktown to Alameda and the city and being with the people was truly was iconic and means more to me than anything. Impact and inspiring is everything. Spent 1 year in the town and the rest is history. The town will forever hold a special place in my heart." To everybody I encountered out there, I love y'all. We will be back again soon, and shout out Tags Jumpman 23. So this is the full tweet from Maxx Crosby. A lot of capital letters to start sentences. That's his style. But the one thing that people are freaking out about on Twitter is that he says going from Oaktown to Alameda, and then he says, and the city. Remember, the 49ers now play in Santa Clara. He didn't shout out to Santa Clara. But I also have to say that when I look at his contract, it's very favorable to the Raiders for how good of a player he is, before we get carried away with any of this stuff. Anyway, Max was a rookie. He was a fourth-round pick, 2019. That was the year before the Raiders moved to Vegas. And because of that, he has connections in the Bay Area. I actually covered a little bit of Raiders football for The Athletic just that year in 2019. They needed me down there a couple times, so I got to meet Crosby. Cool guy. That was before he was a superstar. The Raiders would want to have to trade him. He blossomed over his time in Vegas into one of the best pass rushers in the league. We've been talking about premium edge rushers, especially premium name edge rushers, over the course of the past several days. Yesterday, Cheryl Bosa posted Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa together in 49ers uniforms. But like Max, Joey Bosa is still under contract with his existing AFC West team for the next season. I pivoted the discussion yesterday to Khalil Mack. He's going to be 34 years old in 5 days on February 22nd. He's actually going to be a free agent next month. He's scheduled for that. So that might be something that's a little bit more realistic for the 49ers. The Bosa situation is interesting because I think that his contract lends itself to the Chargers potentially cutting him because he's scheduled a $12.3 million option bonus, and then he's got $13 million on his base salary. So 14 sacks in the past 3 seasons. Not really sure if that's worth foregoing $25 million in savings for the San Diego Chargers. We're going to call them the San Diego Chargers. But the because it is the San Diego Chargers, it's not the LA Chargers. But in the case of Maxx Crosby, the value is there for his existing team. And there's been zero indication that the Raiders, with their new GM and their new coach, Pete Carroll, would want to move on from Maxx Crosby, which makes all of this extra ridiculous to me. I'm going to Maxx Crosby's over the cap page just to read you guys what his contract looks like. Yes, he is entering the final 2 years of his deal. So it's not the final year of his deal. He's entering the final 2 years of his deal. That means that, you know, you can't even really expect an extension as a player in that situation unless you're coming off some kind of insane defensive player of the year deal. But normally it's the lame duck year that's going to be entering 2026 for Maxx Crosby, where the Raiders, I would expect, would sit down with him to extend his contract. But he still has 2 years under his deal, unlike Joey Bosa only has 1. And unlike Joey, Max is delivering the sack production to live up to the contract. This is going to be his age 28 season. He's got a base salary of $22.2 million. The signing bonus has already been paid, relatively small signing bonus. That's how the Raiders operate. They're one of the, I think, more cash poor teams in the NFL. And his per game roster bonus total isn't big. His workout bonus total isn't big. Those two combined are only $882,000. So this is a guy that's owed $22 million that definitely is a $22 million player. Why would Pete Carroll let him walk out of the building? Why would Mark Davis, who has a history of refusing to trade with the 49ers, we go back to Khalil Mack, the 49ers offered more for Mack than anybody back in 2018. Why would Mark Davis want to trade him to San Francisco? So it's a fun fantasy I get for 49ers fans at this time of the year, this in-between time before we head to free agency and before we reached NFL Combine here in Indianapolis. I got here early, but that's all that it is. There is no reason for the Raiders to move on from somebody who's making only about $20 million over the course of 2025, and then again 20 million in 2026. It's roughly that. It averages to that. That is below market rate at this point for the Raiders and Maxx Crosby. Now, I will talk about how fun of a player Max is. I got to go see the joint practices between the 49ers and Raiders. This was before the 2023 season. Yeah, it was before last season. It was hot, of course, in Vegas. We had a terrible angle on the practice field. They didn't even let Greg Papa because he's got this feud with Mark Davis, or Mark Davis has a feud with him. Who knows what's going on there? But they didn't even let Greg walk around on the practice field like play-by-play announcers normally do, because Mark Davis is trying to exact vengeance on Papa. So I watched with Greg. We're on the bleachers. We're on the top row of the bleachers. We're watching across like 2 practice fields to see all the way down to the other corner. But what was really cool is that at the start of practice, some of the Raiders players were warming up near us, near the bleachers that we were on, and Maxx Crosby came over, and he was out before anyone else. And I guess every single day he's there working on pass rushing moves before anyone else is out there. He's got the hand moves down. The way he can move his body, the way that he can bend and contort his body is amongst the best that we've ever seen at the edge rushing position. I mean, he's just very naturally talented mover. And I mean, you're in chaos in that situation, right? When you're rushing the quarterback and you don't know which direction the quarterback's going to be in, if you're going to have to, bend right, bend left, bend under somebody. So the fact that he is so flexible, and you combine that with strength, and then you combine that with the work ethic, that's what's made him as good of a pass rusher as he's been. Over the course of his career, which has gone back to 2019, he had 10 sacks his rookie year, 7 and 8 in 2020 and 2021. And by the way, pretty durable, though the first season where he missed a significant amount of games actually was this last one. He played 12 out of 17 games. But the 2022 and 2023 seasons were truly exemplary for Crosby. 12 and a half sacks, 14 and a half sacks, because he missed some time this past year, down to 7.5 sacks, but I could still, I think, fairly surmise that Maxx Crosby is in the middle of the prime of his career. And I could still fairly surmise that the 49ers could really use edge rushing help, especially after we saw the Super Bowl, on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Now, all that said, they can acquire the edge rushing help in numerous ways. Even if you go after a free agent, and I know Maxx Crosby isn't, but even if you go after a veteran, that doesn't preclude you from getting a rookie. You need a lot of these guys. I think the 49ers probably are a couple really premium guys short. So it's never an exclusive situation. Yesterday I was talking about the Bosa brothers, and everybody's like, oh, they should go after Mack instead, because I was talking about Mack, and he's actually going to be a free agent. I know we're talking about Myles Garrett, and people say, I'd rather have Myles Garrett. Guys, if they get one of these guys, and then, of course, there's other people talking about the draft, and the draft is something we're going to get to. We're not even at the NFL Combine yet, so there's still some there's still a lot of intelligence to collect on that front. But just because we talk about one avenue doesn't preclude another avenue. So there's a reason we could talk about all these veterans, potential trade targets, potential free agent targets, and that is because teams are big. Situations are unpredictable. One thing I will say is that the 49ers have never shied away from going after top tier talent, which is, I think, why, if Myles Garrett eventually does come onto the actual trade block, he wants to be on it, but I don't think the Browns are honoring that right now. 49ers would be crazy to not check in, not see what it would take. If Maxx Crosby ever became available, and there's no indication that he's available, 49ers would be crazy to not check in. And they have checked in on situations like this in the past. Khalil Mack, who's actually scheduled for free agency, when the Raiders, and this is the one that we have to bring up here, when the Raiders were trading him, John Gruden was the coach, Mark Davis was still the owner back then in 2018. When the Raiders were going to trade in 2018, the 49ers offered more than the Bears, where Mack eventually went. But Mark Davis would not trade with the 49ers. And because he would not trade with the 49ers, Khalil Mack went to the Bears. 49ers drafted Nick Bosa the offseason after. But at every single juncture, San Francisco has checked in on these top players, and they actually consummated the trade for Christian McCaffrey. I talked about Myles Garrett at another island. We were at Moorea here in French Polynesia. Now we're at Latahaha, which, it's called a motu, actually. This is a tiny island away from the big island. You got to take a boat out here. You have to take a boat to both of the islands. That one doesn't even have an airport, but when we were on one of the bigger islands, about a 40-minute flight away from here, the conversation was about Myles Garrett. And how the 49ers would check in on everybody. And I think in the case of Myles Garrett, if he became available, I think that would be, okay, the 49ers can give up premium capital just like they did for Christian McCaffrey if this thing, as I predicted, stretches into the regular season. I don't think that the Browns are going to trade Myles Garrett in the offseason. I think that they might try to play hardball. Maybe things develop. Maybe Andrew Berry comes to his senses. But I do think that Andrew Berry is trying to protect his job, and I don't think he wants to acknowledge defeat by trading Myles Garrett right now. So if that does extend to the regular season and you could financially be off the hook for most of Myles Garrett's money because the Browns pay his two option bonuses, I think it's $5 million and $13.4 million due by September 1st. Then you have a Christian McCaffrey-like situation. That's in-season trade. McCaffrey wasn't even on a lame duck deal, but the Carolina was terrible. You have a Christian McCaffrey situation in which the player is only making the league minimum because his contract's been restructured. His existing team has already paid for most of his, or almost like a good portion of his 2025 salary. For McCaffrey, it was 2022. For Christian, the 49ers owed $670,000, but because it was so cheap on the cap, they had to spend a lot of draft capital. They had to spend that second-round pick, third-round pick, what was it, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was for McCaffrey. So In the case of Myles Garrett, if he does become available, I think it's most likely that he becomes available in a fashion like that. But we have to discuss every single possibility, which is why people are so excited about the Myles Garrett about the Maxx Crosby situation today. It's a different name every single day. The reason it's Maxx Crosby is because the All-Star game was in the Bay Area. Hope everybody liked the festivities. And he decided to tweet this. Now, people are reading far into this. I get it, but he shouts out to the city. This guy, his first NFL season, 10 sacks for the Raiders, was in the Bay. You can't fault him for saying thank you to the Bay since he was back there. So who wants me to get in the water? After a few questions, I think we could get in the water. I could show you guys around. I cannot take the mic with me into the water. Although, actually, I have an idea. I will. I'm gonna be a little bit risky. I'll put the mic on the ledge right here, and we'll go from there. Wireless mic for the win here, right? The one thing I'm worried about is that it starts raining again. We're hoping for a little bit of sun today. We got sun on the first couple days. Now it's like, oh man, you get smacked in the face with real life when it starts pouring in the South Pacific as it was yesterday. But we went to the island and we went to the vanilla farm, and we also went to the rum dispensary, the rum distillery, and the pearl farm, like the oysters, they make pearls. That was cool. But right now, for the time being, knock on wood, it's not raining, and we could read this tweet from Maxx Crosby. Spent 48 hours in the Bay this weekend, easily one of the best experiences I've had so far as a professional. The amount of love y'all showed for this fourth rounder from Eastern Michigan was humbling. I was just a young kid chasing my dreams and trying to figure it out when I first touched down in Cali as a rookie. Going from Oaktown to Alameda was iconic and means more to me than anything. Impact and inspiring is everything. Spent 1 year in the town, and the rest is history. The town will forever hold a special place in my heart. To everybody I encountered out there, I love you all. We'll be back again soon. And shout out to Jumpman23, who I think sponsored his trip for the All-Star game. All right, I'm ready for some of your guys' questions. That was Maxx Crosby, again, on Twitter. That's the tweet. When we're out here in French Polynesia, this is how we have to put stuff up on the screen, because I'm not going to hook up my computer. When there's a risk of rain, when I have to, there's a risk of me having to pack this up very, very quickly. I can't have like a full studio set up. I have the Pacific Ocean right behind me, like right under me. I'm about to fall into the ocean as I'm doing this update. So a little bit tough to operate that way. But Mike, if you see any good questions, please send them my way. I know Mike might be occupied for the next few minutes. Somebody asked me, do I think the 49ers can make the playoffs this season? Obviously they can make the playoffs this season. This is the NFL. I mean, even if they were a 2-win team this past year, the playoffs would be possible. Stuff changes really quickly in this league. They go from the doorstep of winning the Super Bowl to 6 wins. I mean, a lot went wrong, a lot can go right, and I would expect a lot more to go right for the 49ers because they will have more rest this offseason, and it's really hard to expect things to go as bad, as poorly as they did in 2024. I mean, it's just as simple as that. You're very unlikely to have 2 snake-bit years in a row. This show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. Do I think that Debo for Denzel Ward is good? That's another question. Denzel Ward, let's see what his contract looks like. player for player plays, player for player trades are so complicated to execute in the NFL because Denzel Ward currently, I mean, it's not a salary match, which you could theoretically still do, but it makes it harder. In 2025, Denzel Ward has a $13.48 million base salary. Deebo Samuel has a league minimum dollar base with an option bonus coming up. Now I think the option, what is it for Deebo? 15.4 million. So if somehow that option was converted to base and you shipped off that salary to another team, it would work. But I just, let's wait. Just I don't have I have the over the cap spreadsheet right now, but I can't really illustrate the nuances of how that would work from a cap situation. The 49ers have the space, the Browns basically don't. So the Browns, to trade somebody like Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns would have to restructure a couple contracts just to make room. So in the case of Denzel Ward, if they were to trade him away, of course you would open up some of the 2025 room, but if you're getting somebody back, then you have to have some room for that. And Deebo, actually, as I'm looking here, might be a little bit more expensive on the 2025 cap than Denzel Ward, and they have limited room. It's a headache. It's an absolute headache. Player for player trades in the NFL, especially at this level of player, likely would have to include salary, I call it a salary eat. A team would have to eat some salary. I don't know which team would eat salary, but you would have to find ways to make it even out. Of course, the draft compensation could be thrown into it. I think it'd be more complicated than just a one-for-one swap. It's getting windy. I'm afraid the rain is going to start falling here soon. You guys can see the shirt is fluttering. I just got a text from Mike. David Njoku. The Browns should be in sell mode, but they're not yet because their GM, I don't know if he's technically on the hot seat, but I could read the room. The guy was at the helm when they gave out the worst contract in NFL history to Deshaun Watson. He might be the worst QB in the league. He's torn his Achilles twice. And I mean, it's tough. The Browns are not, just a player away from contending right now, and they need to admit that sooner rather than later. Somebody asked me questions, any sharks in this water? Yes, we saw one swim literally right under this little bungalow yesterday. That's why I'm about to get in. There are sharks in this water. I'm closing the laptop because I'm afraid that the rain is about to come. I have to hide this laptop on the table, so you guys can give me 1 second. Walking over here. It won't rain on the laptop where I'm at. But you hear that wind, and whenever you're at the ocean, that wind means that storm could be hitting pretty quick. All right, we're back. We have the goggles. This is going to be intense. I really hope that the wind holds off for just a few seconds. I swam all the way out to, here, I'll show you guys where I swam out to yesterday. As soon as we flip this camera around. All right. I swam all the way out to where those waves are breaking yesterday, and I thought I was going to get swept away. That's the kind of situation we were dealing with yesterday, because as soon as you cross the end of that beach right here, it's like a river out there. That water is moving fast. And I was like, okay, I better. There are currents when I swim in the bay from Alcatraz and do that kind of stuff, but usually I have somebody guiding you, and they're on a boat and they know which way, and you have to fall back. Here I had nobody. Here I was about to float off to Tonga. And that would have been a long float. There probably would have been a lot more sharks. But anyway, we had, the question was about the shark. We literally had a shark swim underneath us yesterday, like right here. If the shark appeared right now, I would freak out. Like, I mean, in a good way. I'd get right into the water if I saw the shark. But I want to show you the shark, and I don't see any fish right now. So I think that the coming rain has the fish retreating to deeper water, which is okay. But I think it's time to get in right now. So we don't want anything to blow into the water, but it might, which is the risk that we take when we do stuff like this. We're gonna set it up. We're gonna take this off. We're gonna have it right here. And as promised, as demanded yesterday, as we're talking about Maxx Crosby and the 49ers and his tweet and the fact that the Raiders probably are not interested in trading him, we can go for the swim. Oh my goodness, it's windy. It's making me nervous, guys. It's making me nervous. Storm's about to hit. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make sure Lombardi herself can come out here and make sure this camera doesn't blow into the water. Give me 1 second, because it's really, really windy at this point. Yeah, this is making me nervous. Got my coffee. I'm taking the wireless mic with me too, because my goggles are about to blow in the water. I really want to do this, guys, but I don't want to risk any of this equipment. I don't want to get stuck out in the South Pacific without a phone. Wouldn't be good. So we're gonna ask her to hold it. Give me a second. All right, we've got the assistant on hand. This is gonna work. Here you go. Sound's back on. Thank you. I am gonna put the mic right behind you. Oh no. Here we go. They asked me to dive in.